My son came home from school on a Tuesday afternoon, dropped his backpack on the kitchen floor, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Mom, who's the other woman living with Dad?" I froze the wooden spoon I was holding to stir the pot of collard greens, stopped mid-air. My heart dropped into my stomach like a stone thrown into a deep well. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just stood there in my kitchen, the smell of cornbread baking in the oven, the sound of the TV playing in the living room, and my 12-year-old son staring at me with those big brown eyes, waiting for an answer I didn't have. "What did you just say, baby?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, looking uncomfortable. "There's another woman living with Dad. I saw her when I went to his apartment last weekend. She was making breakfast. She was wearing his robe. The world tilted everything. I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my future. It all came crashing down in that single moment. My name is Diane Mitchell. I'm 52 years old. I've been married to Marcus for 25 years, or at least I thought I was married to him. We separated 6 months ago after I found out he'd been having an affair with someone from his office, a woman named Vanessa who was 15 years younger than me. Blonde, fit the complete opposite of everything. Marcus swore it was over. He moved out. We agreed to try counseling to see if we could save our marriage. For the kids. For the life we'd built together, I believed him. I actually believed that man. When he looked me in the eyes with tears running down his face and told me he'd made the biggest mistake of his life, that he'd do anything to make it right, that Vanessa meant nothing to him. It was just a moment of weakness, a midlife crisis. Whatever excuse men use when they throw away decades of love and loyalty for something new and exciting. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story from. I want to know how far it's traveled. I stood there in that kitchen looking at my son, trying to process what he'd just told me, and I realized, in that moment, that everything Marcus had promised me, every tear he'd shed, every apology he'd made, had been a lie. He hadn't ended things with Vanessa. He'd just gotten better at hiding it. He'd moved her into his apartment, the apartment I helped him pay the deposit for, because even after everything he'd done, I still wanted to help him get back on his feet. I still believed we were going to work things out, that we'd eventually be a family again. And here he was playing house with the woman who'd destroyed our marriage, baby. I said to my son, trying to keep my voice steady, "Are you sure she was living there, not just visiting?" He nodded his head. "Yeah, Mom. Her stuff was everywhere. Her clothes in the closet, her shampoo in the bathroom, her pictures on the fridge. She even had this little dog, a white fluffy thing that kept jumping on me. Dad said her name was Vanessa and that she was his friend. But Mom, she wasn't acting like a friend. She was acting like she lived there. The rage that filled me in that moment was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. It wasn't the hot, explosive anger that makes you scream and throw things. It was cold, calculating the kind of anger that sits in your chest like ice and makes you think very clearly about what you're going to do next. I smiled at my son and told him to go upstairs and do his homework, that everything was fine, that I just needed to make a phone call. He looked relieved to escape the tension in the kitchen and ran upstairs, 2 steps at a time. I stood there for a long moment, listening to his footsteps overhead, the sound of his bedroom door closing, and then I very carefully set down my wooden spoon, turned off the stove, and walked to my bedroom. I needed to think, I needed to plan, because Marcus was about to learn that you don't lie to a woman who spent 25 years building a life with you. You don't betray a woman who stood by you when you lost your job, who nursed you through pneumonia, who raised your children and kept your house and supported your dreams. You don't do that to a woman like me and expect to walk away unscathed. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed Marcus and I had shared for over 2 decades, and I thought about all the signs I'd missed, or maybe hadn't wanted to see: the way he'd been dressing better lately, new cologne, new haircut, the way he'd been going to the gym suddenly after years of me begging him to take care of his health, the way he'd been distant during Our counseling sessions physically present, but mentally, somewhere else with her. I realize now with Vanessa, living the life that should have been ours, the life we were supposed to be rebuilding. I picked up my phone and opened Facebook something. I rarely did anymore, but I needed to see, I needed to know. I typed in Vanessa's name, Vanessa Crawford, and there she was smiling in her profile picture, blonde hair, perfectly styled white teeth, gleaming, looking like she didn't have a care in the world, like she hadn't just destroyed a family. I scrolled through her photos and my stomach turned. There were pictures of her and Marcus together at restaurants, at the movies, at the park with my son. Pictures of her in what I now realized was Marcus's apartment, our son's stuffed bear visible in the background of one photo. The same bear I'd bought him for his 8th birthday she'd posted about her perfect life, her amazing boyfriend. How blessed she was to have found true love at 37. Years old true love she'd stolen. True love she'd built on the foundation of my broken marriage. I wanted to comment on every single photo. I wanted to tell her exactly what I thought of her, but I didn't, because I'm not that woman. I'm not the woman who makes a scene on social media, who lets everyone see her pain, her humiliation. Instead, I took screenshots of everything, every photo, every post, every comment Marcus had left with heart emojis and words of love. I saved it all to a folder on my phone labeled evidence. Because if Marcus thought he was going to move on with his life with Vanessa and leave me with nothing, he had another thing coming. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about what my next move should be part of. Me wanted to call Marcus right then and there, to scream at him, to demand answers, but I knew that would be a mistake. I needed to be smart about this. I needed to think clearly. The problem was we were still legally married. The separation agreement we'd signed was just that. An agreement. It wasn't a divorce. Marcus had been dragging his feet on, filing the actual paperwork, always saying we should wait a little longer, see how counseling goes, give it more time. I'd been patient. I'd been understanding. I'd believed him when he said he wanted to work things out. Now I understood why he'd been stalling. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to keep me on the hook as his wife, probably for tax purposes, or health insurance, or whatever other benefits being married gave him while he lived his best life with Vanessa. Well, that was about to end. The next morning, I dropped my son off at school and drove straight to the office of Patricia Holmes, the best divorce attorney in Atlanta. Patricia was a woman in her 60s, sharp as a tack, with a reputation for absolutely destroying unfaithful husbands in court. I'd heard about her through my cousin, who'd used her when her own husband had decided to trade her in for a younger model. Patricia had taken that man for everything he was worth. And I needed her to do the same thing for Marcus, Mrs. Mitchell. Patricia said as I sat down in her office, "Tell me everything." And I did. I told her about the affair, about the separation, about Marcus's promises to work things out, about the counseling sessions where he'd sit there and nod and say all the right things while secretly moving his mistress into his apartment. I told her about my son coming home and innocently revealing the truth. I showed her the screenshots from Facebook, the photos of Marcus and Vanessa looking like a happy couple. Patricia listened to everything, taking notes, occasionally asking questions, and when I was finished, she sat back in her leather chair and smiled. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said, "I'm going to be very honest with you. Your husband has made several critical mistakes that are going to cost him dearly. First, he moved his girlfriend into his apartment. While you're still legally married, that's adultery, and in the state of Georgia that matters. Second, he's been posting about this relationship publicly on social media, which means we have documented evidence. Third, and this is the big one, he's been taking your son to that apartment, exposing him to his affair partner without your knowledge or consent. That goes to fitness as a parent." I felt a weight lift off my chest as Patricia talked. She explained that we were going to file for divorce. Immediately, We were going to ask for full custody of our son, with Marcus getting only supervised visitation until he could prove he could maintain appropriate boundaries. We were going to ask for the house, for alimony, for child support, for half of his retirement account, for everything. Georgia is not a community property state, Patricia explained, but it is an equitable distribution state. That means the court will divide assets fairly based on a number of factors, including the length of the marriage, each party's financial situation, and yes, misconduct, like adultery, your husband's affair, especially the fact that he's now living with this woman while still married to you. That's going to weigh heavily in our favor. I signed the retainer agreement right there in her office. I paid her $5,000 that I'd been saving in my secret account money. Marcus didn't even know I had money. I'd been putting aside for years just in case, just a little bit here and there from grocery, money from birthday gifts, from the small bookkeeping business I ran from home. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get Patricia started, and she assured me that by the time we were done, Marcus would be paying her fees too. As I left Patricia's office, I felt something I hadn't felt in 6 months. I felt powerful. I felt in control. Marcus had spent half a year thinking he was in charge, thinking he could manipulate the situation, thinking he could keep me waiting while he built a new life with Vanessa, but he'd underestimated me. He'd forgotten that I wasn't just his wife. I was a woman who'd managed every aspect of our household. For 25 years, I balanced the checkbooks. I paid the bills. I knew where every dollar went, and more importantly, I knew where every dollar came from, and I was about to use all that knowledge against him. That afternoon, I went home and I started gathering documents. I pulled out our tax returns from the last 7 years. I made copies of our bank statements, our investment accounts, our mortgage papers. I documented everything. The vacation we'd taken to Miami 2 years ago that Marcus had paid for with our joint credit card, the new car he'd bought himself last year, the expensive watch I'd given him for his 50th birthday that he was wearing in all those Facebook photos with Vanessa. I created a spreadsheet detailing every major purchase, every asset, every debt. It took me 3 days working late into the night after my son went to bed. But when I was finished, I had a complete financial picture of our marriage, and it was going to be Exhibit A in our divorce proceedings. Marcus called me on Friday evening, his voice cheerful, like he didn't have a care in the world. "Hey, Diane," he said. "Can I pick up Malik tomorrow? I thought we could go to the movies. Maybe get some pizza." My hand tightened around the phone. Malik, that's our son, the son who'd discovered his father's secret, the son who was now confused and hurt because his dad had lied to him. "Sure," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "What time?" "Around noon," he said. "I'll have him back by dinner." We said our goodbyes, and I hung up the phone and I smiled because Marcus had no idea what was coming for him on Monday morning at 9 a.m. He was going to be served with divorce papers at his office in front of all his colleagues, in front of Vanessa, who worked in the same building. It was going to be humiliating. It was going to be public, and it was going to be exactly what he deserved, but I wasn't satisfied with just filing for divorce. Oh no, I had plans. Bigger plans, plans that were going to teach Marcus and Vanessa that actions have consequences. That weekend I did something I'd never done before. I hired a private investigator. His name was James Cooper, a former police detective who now ran his own PI firm specializing in infidelity cases. I'd found him online, read the reviews, saw that he'd helped dozens of women just like me gather evidence of their husbands' affairs. I called him on Saturday morning and explained my situation. James listened carefully and then said, "Mrs. Mitchell, I can help you, but I need to know what exactly are you looking for. I want to know everything." I told him. I want to know how long he's been living with her. I want to know if he's spending money on her money. That should be going to support his son. I want to know if there are any other women, if this is a pattern. I want photographs, I want video, I want receipts, I want everything. James was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's going to be expensive. I don't care." I said, "Money isn't the issue. The issue is that my husband thinks he can lie to me, thinks he can play me for a fool, and I'm going to prove to him that I'm not the naive, trusting woman he thinks I am We agreed on his fee, $3,000, for 2 weeks of surveillance, and I paid him half up front. James started following Marcus that very day. By Sunday evening, he'd already sent me his first report. Along with photos, Marcus had spent Saturday with our son at the movies, just like he'd said. But what he hadn't mentioned was that Vanessa had been there too, sitting on his other side, holding his hand, sharing popcorn, while our 12-year-old son sat there watching the movie, pretending not to notice the tension. There were photos of them at the pizza place afterwards, Vanessa's hand on Marcus's arm, her head on his shoulder, our son sitting across from them looking uncomfortable and sad. Heart broke, looking at those photos, not for me, but for Malik, for my baby who was caught in the middle of this mess, who had to watch his father parade his mistress around like she was already part of the family when I picked up Malik on Sunday evening. I asked him casually, "Did you have fun with Dad?" "Yeah," he said, but he didn't sound enthusiastic. "Vanessa came with us." "I know, baby," I said. "Did that bother you?" He shrugged. "I don't know. She's nice, I guess, but it's weird, Mom. Why does she have to be there all the time? Why can't it just be me and Dad?" I pulled him into a hug and held him tight because I wanted him. "I'm sorry, baby," I said. "I'm sorry you're going through this, but I promise you, things are going to get better. We're going to figure this out." "Don't worry." He nodded against my shoulder, and I could feel him relax a little. He trusted me, he believed me, and I was going to make sure I kept that promise, even if it meant going to war with his father. Monday morning arrived, and I woke up before dawn. My stomach was in knots, but it was the good kind of nervous energy, the kind you get before something big is about to happen, something that's going to change everything. I got Malik ready for school, made him breakfast, packed his lunch, and drove him to school, just like any other day. But today was different. Today was the day everything changed at exactly 9 a.m. Mr. Marcus was served with divorce papers at his office. I wasn't there, of course, but James had someone watching someone who took photos of the process server, walking into the building, going up to the 3rd floor, finding Marcus at his desk and handing him a manila envelope. The look on Marcus's face when he opened it and saw what was inside, it was priceless. According to James's contact, Marcus had gone pale. He'd stood up, knocked over his coffee cup, and just stared at the papers for a long moment. Vanessa, who sat 3 desks away, had come over to see what was wrong, and when Marcus showed her the papers, she'd looked shocked, too scared, even because right there on page 1 of the divorce petition was a detailed account of their affair, complete with dates, locations, and photographs attached as exhibits. My phone rang at 9:15. It was Marcus, and his voice was shaking. "Diane, what the hell is this? What did you do?" "What did I do?" I repeated calmly. "I filed for divorce." "Marcus, something I should have done 6 months ago." You can't do this," he sputtered. "We're in counseling. We're working on things, really?" I said we're working on things. "Is that why you moved Vanessa into your apartment? Is that why you've been taking our son around her? Is that why you've been posting pictures of the 2 of you on Facebook like you're some happy couple?" There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Marcus said in a quieter voice, "How did you find out?" "Our son told me. I said he came home last week and asked me who the other woman living with you was." Imagine my surprise. Marcus, imagine how I felt hearing that from my 12-year-old child, Diane. "I can explain," he started, but I cut him off. "No, you can't. There's no explanation that's going to make this okay. You lied to me, you betrayed me, and you involved our son in your lies. You're going to be hearing from my attorney and Marcus. One more thing. You're not to bring Vanessa around Malik anymore if you want. To see your son, you see him alone, not with your mistress. Do you understand?" He was quiet. Then he said, "You can't tell me who I can and can't see. Watch me," I said, and I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking, but I felt incredible. I felt powerful. Like I'd just taken back control of my life after 6 months of being in limbo, of waiting for Marcus to decide if he wanted to fix our marriage or not. Well, now the decision was made, and it was mine, not his. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. James, the private investigator, continued his surveillance, and what he uncovered was even worse than I'd imagined. Marcus had been seeing Vanessa for over a year. Not the 6 months he'd admitted. They'd taken trips together to New York, to Las Vegas. Trips he'd told me were for work. He'd been buying her gifts, expensive jewelry, designer handbags, things he'd never bought for me. Even on our anniversary, he'd opened a credit card. I didn't know about and racked up over $30,000 in charges, most of it spent on Vanessa dinners, at expensive restaurants, hotel rooms, weekend getaways. James presented me with a detailed report complete with receipts, credit card statements, and photographs. It was damning evidence that Marcus had been systematically lying to me for over a year, that he'd been living a double life. Patricia, my attorney, was thrilled. "This is even better than I thought," she said as she reviewed James's report. "Your husband is going to have a very hard time explaining this to a judge, especially the part about the secret credit card, that's dissipation of marital assets. We can argue that he wasted marital funds on his affair, and the judge can order him to reimburse you for half of those charges. That's $15,000. Diane, plus, we're going to get you alimony, child support, and a significant portion of his retirement account. By the time we're done, Marcus is going to regret the day he decided to cheat on you." I sat in Patricia's office, and I felt vindicated, not happy exactly because my marriage was still over, my family was still broken, but vindicated because Marcus was finally going to face consequences for his actions. He'd spent a year lying and cheating, and now he was going to pay for it, literally. Marcus tried to call me several times over the next few days, but I didn't answer. I communicated with him only through Patricia, as she'd instructed me. He sent me long text messages apologizing, begging me to reconsider the divorce, saying he'd made mistakes, but that we could still fix this, that he still loved me. But I knew better. I'd heard all of this before 6 months ago when I'd first discovered the affair. And look what had happened. He'd moved Vanessa into his apartment. He'd continued lying. He'd exposed our son to his mistress. Marcus didn't love me. He loved the idea of me. He loved having a wife at home, keeping up appearances while he lived his fantasy life with a younger woman. Well, those days were over. Vanessa tried to reach out to me too. She sent me a Facebook message that started with, "I know you probably hate me, but I just want you to know that Marcus and I are in love." We didn't mean for this to happen. It just did, and I think it would be better for everyone, especially Malik, if we could all get along, be civil for his sake. I stared at that message for a long time, trying to decide if I should respond. Part of me wanted to tell her exactly what I thought of her, to explain that you don't accidentally fall in love with someone's husband, that it takes deliberate choices to destroy a family. But I didn't respond because Vanessa wasn't worth my time or energy. She was a symptom of Marcus's failures, not the cause. Marcus had made the choice to cheat. He'd made the choice to lie, and he was going to live with those choices instead. I blocked her on Facebook, blocked her on Instagram, blocked her everywhere. I didn't need to see her face. Didn't need to see her fake sympathy. She could have Marcus. She could have all the problems that came with him, the lying, the cheating, the selfishness. She was welcome to it. About a month after I filed for divorce, we had our first court hearing. It was just a preliminary hearing to establish temporary orders, custody visitation, child support, that kind of thing. I dressed carefully that morning in a navy blue suit. I'd bought specifically for this. My hair was done, my makeup was perfect. I wanted to walk into that courtroom looking like the strong, capable woman. I was not the broken, betrayed wife. Marcus probably expected. Marcus was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table with his attorney, a man named Robert Chen, who had a reputation for being aggressive. I sat down at the table next to Patricia, and I didn't even look at Marcus. I kept my eyes straight ahead, focused on the judge's bench. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Williams, came in, and we all stood. She sat down, looked at both parties, and said, "Let's begin. This is the case of Mitchell versus Mitchell. I understand we're here for temporary orders. Who wants to go first?" Patricia stood up. Your Honor, we're asking for temporary, full custody of the minor child with supervised visitation for the father. We're also asking for child support in the amount of $2,000 per month and for the father to maintain health insurance on the child. Marcus's attorney, Robert, stood up as well. Your Honor, my client loves his son. He's been an active and involved father for 12 years. There's no reason to restrict his custody to supervised visitation. And $2,000 a month in child support is excessive given. My client's income, Judge Williams looked at the paperwork in front of her. I see here that there are allegations of adultery. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Patricia said. My client's husband has been engaged in an extramarital affair for over a year. He's now cohabitating with his mistress and has been exposing the minor child to this woman without my client's knowledge or consent. We have evidence documenting this affair, including photographs, social media posts, and credit card receipts, showing that Mr. Mitchell has been spending marital funds on his paramour. Patricia handed a thick folder to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Judge Williams opened the folder and started reading. Her expression remained neutral, but I could see her eyes moving back and forth across the pages, taking in every detail, every photograph, every receipt after what felt like an eternity. She looked up at Marcus. Mr. Mitchell, is it true that you're currently living with another woman while still married to the plaintiff? Marcus stood up, looking uncomfortable. Yes, Your Honor. And when did this living arrangement begin? About 3 months ago, Your Honor. But we're planning to get married as soon as the divorce is final. Judge Williams raised an eyebrow. And during this time, you've had your son visit you at this residence? Yes, Your Honor. But were you aware that the plaintiff objected to this arrangement? Marcus hesitated. We never discussed it specifically. Did you tell the plaintiff that you were living with another woman? No, Your Honor. Judge Williams sat back in her chair and looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then she said, Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to be very clear with you. This court does not look favorably on parents who expose their minor children to extramarital relationships without the knowledge or consent of the other parent. It shows poor judgment and a lack of respect for the co-parenting relationship. Therefore, I'm granting the plaintiff's request for temporary, full custody. The father will have supervised visitation every other weekend and 1 evening per week. Supervision will be provided by a court-approved supervisor at the father's expense. Additionally, Mr. Mitchell, you are ordered to pay child support in the amount of $2,000 per month, effective. Immediately, you will also maintain health insurance on the child, and you are prohibited from having any contact with or discussing the child with your paramour. Is that clear? Marcus looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Yes, Your Honor, good Judge Williams said. Now let's discuss the financial issues. I sat there listening as Patricia outlined all of Marcus's financial misconduct, the secret credit card, the money he'd spent on Vanessa, the trips, the gifts, all of it. Judge Williams ordered Marcus to provide a full accounting of all his finances going back 2 years. She also ordered him to pay me temporary spousal support of $1,500 a month and to continue paying the mortgage on our marital home. When the hearing was over and we walked out of the courtroom, I felt like I was floating. Patricia turned to me with a huge smile on her face. Diane, that went even better than I expected. Judge Williams is clearly on our side. And did you see Marcus's face when she said he could only have supervised visitation? He looked like he was going to be sick? I nodded. I saw, and it felt good. It felt really good. Marcus deserved every bit of that. He deserved to understand what it felt like to lose something precious, to have your world turned upside down by someone you trusted. As we walked out of the courthouse, I saw Marcus standing by his car talking on the phone. He was gesturing wildly, clearly upset. Probably talking to Vanessa, telling her how unfair the judge had been, how his vindictive ex-wife was trying to keep him from his son. I didn't feel sorry for him, not even a little bit. Over the next few months, life settled into a new routine. Malik stayed with me full-time, and Marcus had his supervised visits every other weekend. At first, Malik didn't understand why there had to be a supervisor present. Why couldn't he just go to his dad's apartment? Like before, I explained to him as gently as I could that sometimes when parents are going through a divorce, the court wants to make sure everyone is following the rules. That it wasn't about punishment, but about making sure everything was done right. Malik accepted this explanation. Though I could tell he didn't really understand, the supervised visits were held at a facility downtown, a place that looked like a community center with games and activities for kids. The supervisor was a woman named Carol, who was kind and professional. She'd sit in the corner during Marcus's visits with Malik, observing, taking notes, making sure Marcus didn't badmouth me or try to bring Vanessa around. Marcus hated it, I could tell. From the reports Carol sent to Patricia, he was on his best behavior during the visits. But Carol noted that he seemed distracted, that he spent a lot of time on his phone, that sometimes he seemed more interested in texting than in actually engaging. With Malik, I felt sad for my son because he deserved a father who was fully present, who wasn't distracted by his new girlfriend. But I also knew that this was the consequence of Marcus's choices. He'd chosen Vanessa over his family, and now he was reaping what he'd sown. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I threw myself into my bookkeeping business and started marketing myself more aggressively. I reached out to small businesses in the area, offering my services, and within 2 months, I doubled my client base. The extra income was good. But more importantly, it gave me something to focus on, something that was mine. My friend group rallied around me too. Women I'd known for years from church, from the neighborhood, from Malik's school. They'd all heard about the divorce, and they were incredibly supportive. They'd invite me to dinner, take me out for drinks, include me in their activities. One of them, Teresa, became especially close. She was divorced herself, and she understood what I was going through better than anyone else. Diane, she told me one evening, as we sat on her porch drinking wine the first year after divorce, is the hardest. You're going to have days where you feel like you can't breathe, where you question everything. But I promise you, it gets better. You're going to wake up one morning and realize you're actually happy, that you're not just surviving but thriving. And when that day comes, you'll look back on all of this and you'll be grateful, because this pain, this struggle, it's making you stronger. Her words gave me hope, because even though I was doing well, even though I was keeping busy, there were still nights when I'd lie in bed and feel the weight of everything that had happened. The loss of my marriage, the betrayal, the uncertainty of the future. But Teresa was right, slowly, day by day. It did get better about 4 months after I filed for divorce. James, the private investigator, called me with interesting news. Mrs. Mitchell, he said, I've been keeping an eye on your husband, like you asked. And I thought you should know that things don't seem to be going so well with him and Vanessa. What do you mean? I asked. Well, for starters, they've been fighting a lot. My contact saw them having a huge argument outside a restaurant last week. Apparently Vanessa is upset about the money situation. She thought Marcus had more money than he does, and now that he's paying child support and spousal support to you, plus his own rent and expenses, well, there's not a lot left over for her. I couldn't help but smile, so the reality of the situation was setting in. Vanessa had signed up for the fantasy, the expensive dinners, the trips, the romance, but now she was dealing with the reality. A man who was broke, who had legal problems, who could barely see his own son. Keep me posted. I told James I want to know if anything else develops over the next few weeks. James sent me regular updates. Marcus and Vanessa were fighting more and more. She was apparently pressuring him to finalize the divorce so they could get married. But Marcus was dragging his feet, probably because he was starting to realize that marrying Vanessa would be a huge financial mistake. Then, about 5 months after I filed for divorce, James called me with the news I'd been waiting for. Mrs. Mitchell, Vanessa moved out. She's gone, really. I said, trying to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. Yep, she packed up all her stuff yesterday. My contact saw her loading boxes into a moving truck. Marcus was there, and they were arguing the whole time. Looks like the fairy tale is over. I thanked James for the information and hung up the phone. Then I sat there in my living room, And I laughed. I laughed until tears ran down my face because it was just too perfect. Marcus had thrown away 25 years of marriage for a woman who'd left him the moment things got tough. He'd lied to me, betrayed me, exposed our son to his affair, and for what? For a relationship that didn't even last. A year. The karma of it all was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. A week later, Marcus called me for the first time in months. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello," I said, my voice cold. "Diane," he said, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. "Can we talk? I don't think we have anything to talk about." "Marcus, everything goes through our attorneys. Now I know, but please just 5 minutes. I want to apologize." I sighed. "Fine. You have 5 minutes." There was a long pause. Then he said, "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few months about everything that happened, about the choices I made. And I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the affair. I'm sorry for lying to you. I'm sorry for exposing Malik to Vanessa. I'm sorry for all of it." I sat there listening, waiting for the catch, because there was always a catch with Marcus. "I destroyed our family," he continued, "and I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. You were my partner, my best friend, the mother of my child, and I threw it all away for what? For someone who didn't even really care about me. Vanessa left me. Did you know that?" "Yeah," I said. "I heard things got tough and she was gone, just like that." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Yeah, just like that. Turns out she was more interested in the lifestyle than in me when the money dried up. When reality set in, she couldn't handle it. I wanted to feel sorry for him, but I couldn't. This was the consequence of his actions. This was what he deserved." "What do you want?" "Marcus," I asked. "I want—" He paused. "I want to know if there's any chance at all that we could work things out, that we could try again." I laughed, a short, harsh sound. "Are you serious right now?" "Yes," he said. "I know. I don't deserve it. I know I've hurt you in ways that can't be undone. But we had 25 good years. Diane, 25 years. We raised a son together. We built a life. Can't that count for something?" "It did count for something," I said. "It counted. For a lot, until you decided to throw it all away. Marcus, you didn't just have an affair. You moved another woman into your home. You lied to me for over a year. You spent our money on her. You put her before your family, and now that she's left you, now that you're alone and broke and miserable, you want to come back. You want me to take you back. Like nothing happened." The silence on the other end of the line told me everything I needed to know. Marcus hadn't changed. He was still the same selfish man who thought he could have everything he wanted without consequences. "Listen to me carefully, Marcus." I said, my voice steady and clear. "We are done. We are never getting back together. I don't love you anymore. I don't even like you. You killed whatever feelings I had for you when you decided to betray me. So no, there is no chance, no possibility, no future for us. You made your choice. Now live with it." "But Diane," he started. I hung up the phone and I blocked his number. I didn't need to hear any more apologies, any more excuses. Marcus had shown me who he really was, and I finally believed him. The divorce was finalized 8 months after I filed. Patricia called me on a Thursday morning with the news. "Congratulations, Diane." She said, "You are officially a free woman. The judge signed off on everything this morning. The divorce decree is final." I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. Relief, sadness, gratitude, all mixed together. "It's really over." I said, "It's really over." Patricia confirmed, "And you did very well. The judge awarded you full custody of Malik. Marcus gets standard visitation. No, longer supervised, as long as he doesn't introduce Malik to any new romantic partners. For at least 6 months, you got the house. You got 60% of his retirement account, and you got permanent alimony of $1,200 a month until you remarry or he dies. Marcus also has to pay 75% of Malik's college expenses, and he has to reimburse you for the $15,000 he spent on Vanessa. I sat there absorbing all of this information I'd won. I'd actually won on every front, but it didn't feel like I thought it would. It didn't feel triumphant or victorious. It just felt like the end of a very long, exhausting chapter. "Thank you, Patricia," I said, "for everything you fought for me when I couldn't fight. For myself." "You're welcome, Diane," she said. "Now go live your life." "You're free that afternoon." I picked up Malik from school, and I told him the news that the divorce was final, that things were going to stay the way they'd been. He'd live with me. See? His dad on weekends continue with his normal routine. "How do you feel about that?" I asked him. He shrugged. "I guess it's okay. I kind of knew you and Dad weren't going to get back together anyway. Are you sad?" I asked a little. He admitted, but also kind. Of relieved, like now we can all just move on. You know, I hugged him tight because my son was wise beyond his years. He'd been through so much these past months, and he'd handled it with grace and maturity. I was so proud of him. "We're going to be okay." I told him, "You and me, we're going to be just fine." "I know, Mom." He said, "I know." That night after Malik went to bed, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine, and I thought about everything that had happened over the past year. The discovery of Marcus's affair, the separation, the false hope of counseling, the devastating revelation that he'd moved Vanessa, in the decision to file for divorce, the court hearings, the supervised visits, the financial battles, and finally, the end, the final decree. That officially ended my 25-year marriage. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, trusting, naive, willing to believe the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. And I thought about the woman I was, now stronger, wiser, less, willing to accept less than I deserved. I'd learned so much about myself through this process. I'd learned that I was capable of standing up for myself, of fighting for what was right. I'd learned that I didn't need a man to complete me, that I could build a life on my own that was fulfilling and meaningful. I'd learned that betrayal doesn't destroy you. It transforms you into something harder, something more resilient. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Teresa checking in on me. "How are you doing?" she asked. I smiled and typed back, "I'm free. I'm finally free." A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, I decided to do something I'd been thinking about for months. I decided to redecorate the house. I started with the bedroom. The room I'd shared with Marcus for so many years. I bought new bedding in shades of purple and gold, my favorite colors, not the neutral beiges and grays Marcus had preferred. I painted the walls a soft lavender. I bought new curtains, new lamps, new artwork for the walls. I got rid of everything that reminded me of him. The photos, the clothes he'd left behind, the cologne that still sat on the dresser. I packed it all up and I donated it. Then I moved on to the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom. I went through every room in the house and I made it mine, not ours. Mine. Malik helped me paint his room too. He chose a deep blue, and we spent a Saturday afternoon with paintbrushes and drop cloths transforming his space. We laughed. We made a mess. We ordered pizza and ate it, sitting on the floor, waiting for the paint to dry. "Mom," he said as we were cleaning up, "I like this. Like what, making the house feel new, like we're starting over." I smiled at him. We are starting over. Baby, a fresh start. For both of us. And you know what the best part is? We get to decide what that looks like. No one else. Just us. He nodded, and I could see the relief in his eyes. My son had been carrying so much weight these past months, worrying about me, worrying about his dad trying to be strong for everyone, and now finally he could just be a kid again. He could relax and know that we were going to be okay. Life continued to move forward in ways I never expected. My bookkeeping business kept growing, and within a year of the divorce, I had so many clients that I had to start turning people away. I was making more money than I ever had, working for myself, setting my own hours, being my own boss. It was liberating and empowering in ways I couldn't have imagined when I was married. I'd always put Marcus's career first, his needs, his schedule, and now I was putting myself first, and it felt incredible. I joined a gym and started working out 3 times a week, not because I was trying to lose weight or look good for anyone, but because it made me feel strong physically and mentally, I took up painting, something I'd loved as a young woman, but had given up when I got married, and had Malik. I joined a book club with Teresa and some other women from church, and we'd meet once a month to discuss whatever we were reading and drink wine and laugh about life. I traveled too, something Marcus had never been interested in. I took Malik to Disney World, just the two of us, and we had the best time. Riding roller coasters, eating ice cream for breakfast, staying up late watching movies in our hotel room. I went to New York City with Teresa for a long weekend, and we saw Broadway shows, ate at amazing restaurants, walked through Central Park. Went to Savannah with my sister, and we explored the historic district, took a ghost tour, drank sweet tea on a riverfront patio. I was living my life on my own terms, and it was beautiful. About a year and a half after the divorce, I ran into Marcus at Malik's school basketball game. I hadn't seen him in months, except for brief glimpses during custody exchanges, and I barely recognized him. He'd gained weight, his hair was grayer, and he looked tired, worn down. He was sitting alone in the bleachers, and when he saw me, he gave a small, awkward wave. I nodded back, but I didn't go over to sit with him. I sat on the opposite side of the gym with Teresa, who'd come to support Malik too. During halftime, Marcus came over to where we were sitting. "Hey, Diane," he said, "can I talk to you for a minute?" Teresa looked at me, and I nodded. "It's okay," I said. "I'll be right back." Marcus and I walked out into the hallway, away from the noise of the gym. So he said, "What did you want to talk about?" He paused, looking uncomfortable. "I just wanted to see how you're doing." "You look good." "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I'm doing well. Business is good. Malik is doing great. We're happy." "That's good," he said. "I'm glad. And how are you?" I asked, more out of politeness than genuine interest. "Not great," he admitted. "I'm struggling financially. The child support and alimony are killing me, and I had to take a pay cut at work. They were downsizing. And I was lucky to keep my job at all. Plus, I'm still paying off that credit card, the one I used for Vanessa. The bank is threatening to sue me." I felt a flicker of something, not quite sympathy, but maybe pity. This was the man I'd spent 25 years of my life with, the father of my child, and he was clearly suffering. But I also knew that this suffering was entirely of his own making. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "And what about your personal life? Are you seeing anyone?" He shook his head. "No, I've been focused on just trying to get my life together. I'm in therapy, actually, trying to work through some things, understand why I made the choices I made." "That's good," I said. "Therapy is helpful." There was an awkward silence. Then Marcus said, "I know I don't have any right to ask this, but do you ever think about what could have been if I hadn't screwed everything up?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering love, just nothing sometimes. I said, "But not in the way you probably think. I don't wonder about getting back together. I don't fantasize about us fixing things. What I think about is how much time I wasted trying to save a marriage that wasn't worth saving. How much of myself I gave up trying to make you happy." "What do you mean? You were happy, weren't you?" "No, Marcus, I wasn't. I was comfortable. I was secure, but I wasn't happy. I was so busy taking care of you and Malik and the house and everything else that I forgot to take care of myself. I forgot who I was outside of being your wife and Malik's mother. And honestly, the divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me because it forced me to rediscover myself." Marcus looked stunned. "I never knew you felt that way." "Of course you didn't." I said, "because I never told you. I never told you that I wanted to go back to school, that I wanted to travel, that I wanted to pursue my own dreams. I just supported yours, and I resented you for it. Even though it was my own fault for not speaking up, but I'm speaking up now. I'm living my life the way I want to, and I'm happier than I've been in years." "I'm glad," Marcus said quietly. "You deserve to be happy, Diane." You always did. The referee's whistle blew from inside the gym, signaling the start of the second half. "We should get back," I said. Marcus nodded. "Yeah, we should." As we walked back into the gym, he said one more thing. "What is it?" "I'm proud of you." "For real. You've built something amazing, and you're raising our son to be a good man. I can see how happy he is, how well adjusted. Despite everything that happened, that's because of you." "Thank you," I said. "And Marcus, I hope you figure things out. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." "I hope so too." He said we went back to our separate sides of the bleachers, and I watched the rest of the game with Teresa when it was over, and Malik came bounding over, sweating and smiling, asking if we could go get ice cream. I said yes without hesitation, because that's what my life was now saying. Yes to joy, to spontaneity, to moments of happiness with my son. 2 years after the divorce, I met someone. His name was David. He was 55, a widower whose wife had passed away from cancer 3 years earlier. He had 2 grown daughters, and he was kind, gentle, patient. Everything Marcus had never been. We met at a church fundraiser. I was working the bake sale table, and he came up to buy some of my famous peach cobbler. We started talking, and I found out he was an architect, that he loved jazz music, that he volunteered at a homeless shelter every Saturday morning. He asked for my phone number, and I gave it to him. Our first date was dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant, and we talked for hours about everything: our pasts, our children, our hopes for the future. David didn't try to rush anything. He didn't pressure me. He just let things develop naturally, slowly. And that was exactly what I needed. Malik liked him too, which was important to me. David would come over for Sunday dinners, and he and Malik would talk about sports, about school, about life. David treated my son with respect, listened to him, and that meant everything to me. We dated for about 8 months before David asked me to marry him. We were walking on the beach at sunset, and he got down on one knee and pulled out a simple diamond ring. "Diane," he said, "I know we haven't known each other that long, but I know what I feel. I love you. I love your strength, your kindness, your faith. I love the way you laugh. I love the way you love your son. I don't want to spend another day without you in my life. Will you marry me?" I looked at this good man kneeling in the sand, offering me his heart, and I realized that I had finally found what I'd been looking for. Not someone to complete me, but someone to complement me. Someone who respected me as an equal. Someone who saw me for who I really was. "Yes," I said, "yes, I'll marry you." We got married 6 months later, in a small ceremony at our church with just close friends and family. Malik walked me down the aisle, looking so handsome in his suit, so grown up at 14. And when David and I exchanged vows, I felt like I was finally where I was supposed to be. Marcus came to the wedding. He brought Malik after all, and he sat in the back. And when I walked past him down the aisle, I saw something in his eyes. Regret maybe, or acceptance, or maybe just sadness for what he'd lost. But I didn't dwell on it, because this day wasn't about Marcus. It wasn't about my past. It was about my future with David, about the new life I was building, about the woman I'd become. 3 years after my divorce from Marcus, I was standing in my kitchen, the same kitchen where this whole story started, where my son had come home and asked me about the other woman living with his dad, and I realized how far I'd come, how much I'd grown, how much my life had changed. I was happier than I'd ever been. I had a husband who loved and respected me, a son who was thriving, a business that was successful, friends who supported me, a life that was full of joy and purpose and meaning. The pain of Marcus's betrayal had faded, not disappeared, but faded into something manageable, something that no longer controlled my life. I could look back on those dark days when I first discovered the affair, when I had to make the agonizing decision to file for divorce, when I had to fight for what was mine and what I deserved, and I could be grateful. Grateful because that pain had transformed me into someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who knew her worth and wouldn't settle for less. I thought about Vanessa, sometimes wondered if she ever regretted her choices, if she ever thought about the family she'd helped destroy. But mostly, I didn't think about her at all, because she was irrelevant to my story. She was a footnote, A brief, dark chapter that led to a much brighter ending, and Marcus, I saw him occasionally at Malik's school events, at basketball games, at parent-teacher conferences, and I felt nothing for him, no love, no hate, just indifference. He was Malik's father, and we co-parented civilly, but that was all he was to me now. Just my son's father, not my husband, not my partner, not the man I'd built my life around. Malik was doing wonderfully. He was a sophomore in high school, now getting good grades, playing basketball. Talking about college, he had a girlfriend, a sweet girl named Jasmine who came over for dinner sometimes, and David and I would sit there watching them do homework together, and we'd smile at how young and innocent they were, how full of hope Malik had forgiven his father eventually, after a lot of therapy and long conversations with me about forgiveness, and moving forward, he saw Marcus every other weekend, and they had a decent relationship, not perfect, but decent, and that was enough, Mom. Malik said to me one evening as we were washing dishes after dinner, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, baby. What is it? Do you ever regret divorcing Dad?" I thought about the question carefully because I wanted to give him an honest answer. "No," I said, "I don't regret it. The divorce was hard. It was painful. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever been through. But it was also necessary. Your father and I, we weren't good together anymore. Maybe we never were, and staying in a marriage that wasn't working, that wasn't healthy. That would have been worse for everyone, including you. But don't you miss being a family?" He asked. "We are a family," I said. "Just a different kind of family. You have me, you have David, you have your dad. We all love you. We all want what's best for you. That's what makes a family, not living in the same house or having the same last name, but love and support and being there for each other." Malik nodded. "I guess that makes sense." "Good," I said. "Now, finish drying those dishes, and then we can watch a movie. David's picking tonight, so it's probably going to be some old Western." Malik laughed. "That's okay. I like Westerns." And as I stood there in my kitchen with my son, with my new life, with all the hard-won peace and happiness I'd fought for, I realized that everything had worked out exactly the way it was supposed to. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the struggle, it had all led me here to this moment, to this life, to this version of myself that I was proud of, and I wouldn't change a thing. I'm telling you this story. Not because I want sympathy or praise, but because I want other women out there who might be going through something similar to know that you can survive betrayal. You can survive divorce. You can survive having your entire world turned upside down, and you can come out the other side stronger, happier, more whole than you ever were before. It won't be easy. There will be days when you want to give up, when the pain feels too overwhelming, when you question if you made the right choice, but I promise you, if you stay strong, if you remember your worth, if you refuse to settle for less than you deserve, you will get through this, and you will build a beautiful life on the other side. Don't let anyone tell you that you're too old to start over, that you're too set in your ways, that you should just accept things the way they are, because that's a lie. You are never too old to choose yourself, to prioritize your happiness, to walk away from situations and people that don't serve you. I was 52 when I filed for divorce, 52 when I had to rebuild my entire life from scratch. And now, at 55, I can honestly say I'm living my best life. I'm not saying divorce is always the answer. Every situation is different. Every marriage is unique. But what I am saying is that you deserve respect, you deserve honesty, you deserve a partner who values you, who sees you, who chooses you every single day. And if you're not getting that, if you're being lied to, betrayed, taken for granted, then you have to ask yourself why you're staying. Is it fear? Is it comfort? Is it because you think you can't do better? Because let me tell you, you can do better. You can build a life that's so much richer and fuller than anything you have right now, but it starts with making the choice to put yourself first. Marcus taught me a lot of things during our marriage, but the most valuable lesson he taught me came after the divorce. He taught me that I didn't need him, that I was capable of standing on my own 2 feet, that my happiness didn't depend on having a man by my side. He taught me that betrayal doesn't break you. It reveals who you really are and who the people around. You really are, and sometimes that revelation is the greatest gift you can receive, because once you see people for who they truly are, you can make informed decisions about who deserves to be in your life and who doesn't. So if you're watching this video and you're going through something similar, if your world has been turned upside down by betrayal or lies or infidelity, I want you to know that you're not alone, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that you have the strength within you to not just survive, but to thrive. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Don't let anyone convince you that you're overreacting or being too dramatic, or that you should just forgive and forget, because some things can't be forgotten, and some things shouldn't be forgiven. Trust your instincts, trust your worth, trust that you deserve better, and then go out and build that better life for yourself one day at a time, one choice at a time, one step at a time. You've got this. I believe in you, and if I can do it, if this 52-year-old woman who'd been a housewife for 25 years, who'd never lived alone, who'd never made her own financial decisions, if I can rebuild my life and find happiness, then so can you. So don't give up. Don't settle. Don't accept crumbs when you deserve the whole feast, because life is too short to spend it with people who don't value you, who don't respect you, who don't love you the way you deserve to be loved. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who needs to hear it, and remember, you are stronger than you think you are, braver than you believe you are, and more deserving of love and happiness than you could possibly imagine. Now, go out there and claim the life you deserve. And you know what the best part of all of this is? After everything that happened, after all the pain and the struggle and the rebuilding, I can honestly say I'm grateful. Grateful for the experience, grateful for the lessons, grateful even for Marcus's betrayal. Because without it, I never would have discovered who I really am. I never would have found David. I never would have built this business, or traveled, or painted, or lived my life on my own terms. I would have stayed in that comfortable, but unfulfilling marriage, slowly losing pieces of myself until there was nothing left but a shell of the woman I was meant to be. So thank you, Marcus, wherever you are. Thank you for being unfaithful. Thank you for lying. Thank you for showing me your true colors, because in doing so you set me free. You gave me the greatest gift you could have given me, even though you didn't mean to. You gave me myself back. And for that, despite everything, I will always be grateful. This is my story. This is my truth. This is how I went from being a betrayed wife to a strong, independent woman who knows her worth and refuses to settle for anything less. And if my story can inspire even one woman out there to stand up for herself, to demand better, to walk away from a situation that's destroying her soul, then every moment of pain I went through was worth it. So ladies, gentlemen, whoever is watching this, remember that betrayal is not the end. It's the beginning of your real life, the life you were always meant to live, the life where you come first, where your happiness matters, where you're not just surviving but thriving now. If you'll excuse me, I have a husband who actually loves and respects me waiting for me. I have a son to pick up from basketball practice. I have a business to run. I have a life to live, a beautiful, blessed, abundant life that I built with my own 2 hands, and I'm going to go enjoy every single minute of it because I deserve it, and so do you. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story on the screen. You can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.